He made $8 billion a year. He shot down military helicopters. He had a $15 million bounty on his head, and no one even knew what he looked like. On February 22, 2026, a helicopter cuts through the mountains of Jalisco, Mexico. Inside, a man is bleeding out on the floor. His eyes are open, his breathing is shallow, and the $15 million bounty on his head no longer matters. Because Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes, the man they call El Mencho, is already dying. 12 hours ago, he was the most wanted man in the Western Hemisphere. He ran an empire that stretched across 40 countries. He commanded an army with more firepower than some governments. He had evaded every intelligence agency on the planet for over a decade. Now he's cargo. This is the story of how a fifth-grade dropout from a village in Michoacán built the deadliest drug cartel on Earth, how he waged war on an entire country, and how one woman, someone he loved, led the military straight to his door. But to understand how this ends, you need to understand where it begins. The village of Aguililla sits deep in Michoacán's Tierra Caliente, the hot land. It's the kind of place where the heat doesn't just sit on your skin, it gets inside you, it shapes you, it breaks you, or it hardens you. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes is born here on July 17, 1966. One of 6 brothers, his family farms avocados. They have nothing, no money, no future, no way out. By 11, he's out of school. By 14, he's standing guard over marijuana fields in the mountains with a rifle he can barely hold. He's not a gangster yet, he's just a kid trying to survive in a place where survival and crime are the same thing. But the mountains aren't enough for him, and what he does next sets off a chain of events that will eventually drown Mexico in blood, but we'll get to that. Sometime in the 1980s, he crosses the border into California. He's looking for something, maybe money, maybe a life that doesn't smell like dirt and gunpowder. What he finds instead is trouble. San Francisco, 1986. He's 19, arrested for theft and carrying a loaded firearm. A few years later, another arrest, this time for heroin trafficking with his brother. He pleads guilty in 1992, gets 5 years, serves 3 in a Texas federal prison, and then they put him on a plane back to Mexico. Now here's where the story takes a turn that nobody sees coming, and I mean nobody. He becomes a cop. A police officer in Jalisco, working small towns like Tomatlan and Cabo Corrientes, the kind of places where the line between law enforcement and organized crime isn't blurry, it doesn't exist. He doesn't stay long, he doesn't need to, because he's already learned the only lesson that matters in Mexico. Power doesn't come from a badge, it comes from fear. Remember that line, it explains everything that happens next. He drifts to Guadalajara and falls in with the Mencho Cartel, a trafficking organization running under the umbrella of the mighty Sinaloa cartel. The man running Guadalajara for Sinaloa is a capo named Nacho Coronel, brutal, ruthless, untouchable. Mencho becomes part of his inner circle, a bodyguard, an enforcer, a hitman. Whatever needs doing, Mencho does it, quietly, efficiently. And while everyone around him is chasing money and women and attention, Mencho is doing something else entirely. He's studying. He watches how territory is taken. He watches how loyalty is bought. He watches how empires fall when leaders get careless. He's memorizing the blueprint, not to follow it, to improve it. And then, around 2009, the Mencho cartel begins to fracture. Bosses are killed. Bosses are arrested, the old structure collapses like a house of cards. Most men would have scrambled for scraps. El Mencho built something new, something the world had never seen before. From the ashes of Mencho, he forges the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. And what happens over the next few years is so rapid, so violent, so calculated that even the DEA couldn't believe what they were seeing. In 6 months, CJNG expands from a regional outfit to a coast-to-coast operation spanning all of Mexico. By 2012, it's one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the country. By 2015, it's the most powerful. And by 2018, it's something else entirely. Over 100 methamphetamine superlabs, $8 billion a year in cocaine revenue, $4.6 billion in crystal meth, operations in every single Mexican state, a presence in over 40 countries across 5 continents. But here's what separates El Mencho from every drug lord who came before him. Pablo Escobar wanted to be loved, El Chapo wanted to be famous. El Mencho wanted to be feared, and he was very, very good at it. CJNG isn't just a cartel, it's a paramilitary army. They have special operations units trained for specific types of warfare. They have a professional hitman training program. Strict, disciplined, systematic. They don't recruit thugs, they build soldiers. One expert compared his approach to Genghis Khan: wipe out the opposition completely. Leave the bodies where everyone can see them. Make the message so loud, so brutal, so permanent that no one ever thinks about resisting again. And when I say brutal, I need you to understand the scale of what I'm talking about. In 2015, CJNG shoots down a Mexican military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade. 9 soldiers die. Think about that. A drug cartel shooting down a military aircraft, like a scene out of a war movie, except this is real. In another attack, 15 police officers are ambushed and massacred in Jalisco, one of the deadliest strikes against security forces in modern Mexican history. They execute people publicly and post the footage on social media. They kidnap civilians and make them disappear. They assassinate politicians, judges, and police officers, not in the shadows, in broad daylight, because the point isn't just to kill. The point is to make sure every single person in Mexico knows they can. And through all of it, all the blood, all the billions, all the chaos, El Mencho himself is invisible. This is the part that still baffles investigators. There are almost no photographs of him, no videos, no interviews, no social media. In an era where cartel leaders flaunt gold-plated guns on Instagram, El Mencho is a ghost, a rumor with a body count. The most dangerous man in the Western Hemisphere, and for over a decade, no one can even confirm what he currently looks like. He moves constantly. He uses sophisticated counterintelligence that rivals government agencies. He buys politicians, police chiefs, military officers. Entire regions of Mexico operate as his personal fortress. He is, by every measure, untouchable. But here's something I've learned making these videos. Every untouchable man has a crack in his armor. For Escobar, it was his family. For El Chapo, it was his ego. For El Mencho, it was something no one expected. And it's the reason he's dead right now. But before I get to that, and trust me, you want to hear this, you need to understand just how hard the world was trying to catch him. Because what happened in the years before that helicopter ride is what makes the ending hit so much harder. The noose begins to tighten around 2024. His son, Rubén Oseguera González El Menchito, is extradited to the United States, convicted on multiple drug trafficking charges, sentenced to life plus 30 years, his own blood locked in a cage on American soil, never coming home. His older brother Abraham Don Rodo, a founding member of CJNG and the mastermind behind the cartel's money laundering empire, is recaptured by Mexican authorities. Then in February 2025, the Trump administration does something that changes the game completely. They designate CJNG as a foreign terrorist organization. Not just a cartel, not just a trafficking group, a terrorist organization, the same label given to ISIS. To Al-Qaeda, the rules of engagement just changed. Piece by piece, the walls are closing in. His family is gone. His financial network is exposed. $15 million hangs over his head like a guillotine blade. And somewhere in the intelligence community, someone picks up a thread, a thin one, almost invisible. A woman. Now, this is the part of the story nobody talks about. The part that proves that no matter how many billions you have, no matter how many armies you command, no matter how many governments fear your name, you are still human, and humans have weaknesses. Military intelligence had been tracking the movements of a trusted associate, someone connected to a romantic partner of El Mencho's, a woman he cared about. On February 20, 2026, surveillance data shows this associate transporting the woman to a residence inside the Tapalpa Country Club, an upscale gated community in the mountains of Jalisco. Pine trees, clean air, the kind of place where wealthy Mexicans escape the noise of the lowlands. On February 21st, security forces confirm that the woman enters the property, meets with Oseguera, then leaves. But now they know. The ghost is inside. They have his location for the first time in over a decade, and they have a choice to make: move now or risk losing him again, maybe forever. They move. And what happens next happens fast. If you're still watching, this is why you stayed. February 22nd, 2026, Saturday morning. The air in Tapulpa is cool and thin at altitude, the kind of mountain air that carries sound for miles. The country club is quiet, peaceful, birds, wind through pines, the kind of morning that feels like nothing bad could ever happen. Security forces move in on foot, 2 military helicopters circle above. Special Forces operators advance toward the compound in a coordinated formation, every exit covered, every sightline mapped. This isn't a raid, this is a kill box. And then the first shots shatter everything. CJNG gunmen open fire from inside the property as federal troops close in. High-caliber weapons, heavy automatic fire. The mountains echo with the sound of war as cartel members throw everything they have at the advancing soldiers. They know exactly who's inside, and they know their only job is to buy him time. Several cartel members go down in the opening exchange. Security forces push through the gunfire, clearing positions one by one. They breach the compound. And he's not there. Amid the chaos, El Mencho has slipped out the back with 4 members of his personal security detail. He's running into the woods, into the mountain terrain he's known since he was a boy, standing guard over marijuana fields with a rifle he could barely lift. The same mountains 35 years later, and he's running through them again. But this time the soldiers don't stop. A Special Forces team breaks off from the main assault and pursues him into the tree line. A second firefight erupts on the wooded hillside. Gunfire tears through pine branches, rounds snap through the thin mountain air. And when the shooting stops, El Mencho is on the ground, gravely wounded, bleeding into the soil of Jalisco. A helicopter is called in for emergency extraction. They load Oseguera onto the aircraft alongside 2 wounded cartel bodyguards and an injured soldier. The rotors spin up. The helicopter lifts off over the mountains. The same mountains where a 14-year-old boy once stood guard with a rifle he could barely hold. The same mountains that hid him for a decade. The same mountains that made him. He never makes it to a hospital. Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes dies somewhere between the sky and the earth, bleeding out on the floor of a military helicopter while the mountains of Jalisco scroll beneath him. He is 59 years old. 8 CJNG members die in the operation. The Mexican Defense Department confirms the mission was a joint effort with U.S. intelligence, providing the critical data that pinpointed his location. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau announces it to the world. El Mencho, one of the bloodiest and most ruthless drug kingpins in history, is dead. For about 6 hours, it feels like a victory. And then Mexico catches fire. The retaliation begins before the sun goes down. It's coordinated, it's furious, and it's designed to send a message the entire world can see. CJNG operatives launch simultaneous attacks across multiple Mexican states. Convenience stores and gas stations are torched. Trucks are dragged across highways and set ablaze. Flaming roadblocks shut down entire cities, and 25 members of Mexico's National Guard are killed in a single wave of coordinated violence. By Sunday night, Mexico's security agency reports 252 blockades across the country. 252 in one day. In Puerto Vallarta, smoke rises over the tourist strip while vacationers scramble for cover. At the Guadalajara airport, passengers sprint through terminals in panic. The city of Guadalajara, Mexico's second largest, becomes a ghost town as civilians barricade themselves inside their homes. Schools across several states shut down Monday morning. The cartel's message is written in fire across the face of an entire nation. You took our king, so we burn everything. But here's the question no one in power wants to answer honestly, and it's the question that will determine whether any of this mattered. Did killing El Mencho actually change anything? Experts have studied this pattern for decades. They call it the kingpin strategy: target the leader, cut the head off the snake. And every single time the snake doesn't die, it splits into smaller, angrier snakes that go to war with each other, and civilians get caught in the crossfire. Mexico's own president has criticized this exact approach, saying it tends to fracture organizations into competing factions that then fight bloodily for control. One analyst put it plainly: El Mencho's removal is like saying a company will fail because you remove the CEO. The drugs will keep flowing, there will be plenty of pretenders to the throne, and Mexico will have to deal with the fallout. With El Menchito locked away for life in America, the line of succession is broken. There is no heir, no obvious replacement, no smooth transition of power. And a cartel without a clear leader doesn't quietly dissolve. It fractures, lieutenants become warlords, allies become enemies, and the violence doesn't decrease. It multiplies. Across Mexico today, more than 130,000 people are listed as missing. Jalisco alone accounts for 16,000 of those cases. 16,000 families who will never get a phone call, never get closure, never get to bury their loved ones. El Mencho didn't create that darkness alone, but he industrialized it. He scaled it. He turned human suffering into a supply chain worth billions. And now he's gone. He started life as a barefoot kid picking avocados in Michoacán. He ended it bleeding on the floor of a military helicopter somewhere over the same mountains that raised him. The machine he built is still running, the drugs are still flowing, the labs are still cooking, the guns are still loaded. And somewhere in Mexico right now, in some village you've never heard of, in some valley the maps forgot, another 14-year-old kid is picking up a rifle. The question was never whether El Mencho would fall. Men like him always fall. Every empire built on blood eventually drowns in it. The real question, the one that should keep you up tonight, is who's next, and whether the next El Mencho is already out there, watching, learning, waiting. Just like Nemesio once did. And right now, nobody has the answer. Now if you made it this far, you're clearly the type of person who wants to understand the world beneath the surface. If that's you, do me a favor, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next story we're telling might be even darker than this one. Drop a comment and tell me, did killing El Mencho make Mexico safer, or did it just light the fuse on something worse? I'll see you in the next one.